Welcome to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, where owners of privately held middle market companies talk about founding, scaling, and exiting their businesses successfully. Learn how to maximize and monetize your business on your own terms. Let's get started.
Hello, I'm Heather Bennett, your host for the Growth Plus Exit podcast, featuring business owners talking about successfully scaling, founding, and potentially exiting their businesses. Past guests have included Allison Cummins, the CEO of Blue Outcomes, Kevin Poole, the CEO of Newport, and Jody Jankowski, CEO of Blackline. This episode is brought to you by Newport LLC, a team of seasoned C-suite executives who help CEOs of privately held companies grow, de-risk, and exit their businesses successfully. To learn more about Newport, please visit us at newportllc.com or find us on LinkedIn. Before introducing today's guest, I would like to thank my colleagues at the Private Directors Association for introducing me to my guest. PDA enables and enhances the value, growth, and resilience of privately held companies through effective governance. Find out more about PDA at privatedirectors.org. And as Matt just mentioned, we also met at a very exciting quantum event that happened last year. So it's been a pleasure meeting you, Matt. I'll give a brief introduction and then we'll get this conversation started. Today's guest is Matt Vuckov. Matt is the founder and CEO of TalentCraft, a strategic staffing partner based in the Chicagoland area. They specialize in talent solutions for industries including healthcare, technology, government policy, life sciences, and biotech. His strong focus on reshoring the semiconductor innovation, TalentCraft connects organizations with top talent to drive digital transformation and workforce development. And we're going to talk a little bit about that workforce development part in particular, because I think there's a lot to talk about at this time. In addition to leading TalentCraft, Matt now serves as the chair of Engineering, IT, and Scientific Section Council and leads the ASA Reshoring Task Force, advocating for workforce strategies to support critical manufacturing and technology sectors in the U.S. So he's a busy guy. We will definitely talk about the future of work, as I know Matt is incredibly passionate about that. But we'll start first with TalentCraft because I'm so excited to learn more. Matt, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the invitation.
So, Matt, tell me about TalentCraft. How did this get started? Where did it come from?
Yeah. So, well, again, thank you, Heather. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to hop on and share my story, talk about TalentCraft, talk about the future of work, and just again, you and Newport have been great partners and a great platform for us here to kind of get some of our ideas out there into the broader business ecosystem. So really appreciate that. TalentCraft, I grew up in the staffing and recruiting industry. I had an opportunity to work for some really great companies, some really good mentors along the way. I've had, good leaders that I could look to not only just, model my career around, but really life, right? Good role models from, how to be a good dad, how to be a good husband, person in the community. So I've been really fortunate to have had that experience early in my career. I've also had really good parents. And, I think one of the things that my parents taught me early on, they were both themselves in their own right, entrepreneurs. And my mom ran a travel agency, and my dad ran a drapery and blind installation business. He was just a one-man shop, but I got to see him kind of have his business, grow his business, take control of it, and really he taught me a lot about customer service, because I would see him go out, do his work all day long as a kid, and then come home and sit in his office and do his paperwork, as he called it, and, plan his day and return messages and, voicemails that he would get on his answering machine. And, that was my time to kind of sit there with him and watch the Cubs games and just hang out with him in his office while he got prepared for the next day. And I think that was honestly like what led me to found TalentCraft. I think when I knew that I loved the work that I was doing, I loved the labor market, I loved connecting people with opportunity and kind of like figuring out that puzzle. I think I knew when I realized that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my career, hopefully. It was that experience that I had kind of growing up around entrepreneurs and just kind of being in a family where I think people kind of sought to make their own path. That the formation of the idea of TalentCraft kind of came from.
Awesome. And I love hearing about, the fact that a lot of entrepreneurs and business founders had someone in their life, normally their family, who had that entrepreneurial and business owner bent, because I feel like being able to see that as you grow up gives you an example of what it looks like and why it's possible,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Very cool. So very beginning, when you founded TalentCraft, what were those first couple weeks of saying, maybe I should start this business? What was
Well,
that like?
yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned, I had a great job and I was working at a great company. We were doing some really great things. That company was kind of in the midst of a transition at the time from a IT staff augmentation firm to something more than that, right? It was growing and it was evolving itself. This was around the time that like the local model consultancy was really taking hold, and we were evolving our business from independent individual contributor placements to consulting led projects, right? Building teams, driving strategy at our clients. And that was a really cool experience. Like I got to be a part of that, and I got to go from selling one service to selling a service that was similar, but like something more, something elevated. And, I was having a conversation with one of my best friends. He had just started his own business. And he was the person that introduced me to my business partners, who are the critical, piece in this whole thing, right? So I was connected with a family of entrepreneurs as well, and they are also very experienced and have a deep background within the staffing and recruiting industry. And I remember we met for breakfast, and it was like an instant click. Our values aligned. I think the vision of what we were both like wanting to build, like we were both kind of talking about the same thing. And when we got together, it was like, well, this is a fit, right? And it seems like I think the values piece was a huge thing of it. Without knowing kind of how a business partnership and is going to work out, it was like we were both long-term thinkers. And I think at the core, like, you don't, when you start a business, like you can't predict the future. That's the one thing that I've learned. Then the biggest thing that I've learned through this, but you can count on, I think, the people who you're going to be doing it with, right? Like that's the constant. And I just knew like from day one that like, these were the right folks to be partnering with. So yeah, that was kind of how it started. And, it's grown, and there's been several iterations of what the idea of TalentCraft was on day one to what it is now. And, that journey has been a real blessing in my life to kind of have gone through that with the folks that I'm building with.
Awesome. So what are some of those major, we'll say, milestones or leaps? Especially because a lot of what TalentCraft has done changed the industry, from what I understand, looking at how everything evolved. So what were some of those big leaps that happened?
Yeah, I think the first one is just kind of like proving our thesis and our model, and then being able to execute. So like the first milestone was probably, get one client make one placement and prove that execution, right? And I'll never forget the first time that we did that. It was like, wow, like this is possible, right? So you go from there to then starting to scale. We built our team. We started thinking about what the structure of our team was going to look like. And I think in the early days, like we were following a playbook that I think many in the staffing and recruiting industry would think is it was very familiar to them, right? This was, sales and delivery, sales and recruiting. We hired consultative, problem-solving, entrepreneurial salespeople that would get out there into the market, engage with our clients, address their most critical, concerns from how they were building their team. And then we had a very experienced recruitment team that could do the same thing with candidates. So like I think our real superpower was being able to marry complex, nuanced opportunities that our clients were kind of struggling to get their head around and make those things real for them by bringing it to the market and being able to bring great candidates and consultants into the equation. And then once we were able to kind of get those two parties together, we were great at kind of making the deal happen there. We had the infrastructure in place that could support that working arrangement. And so from there, I mean, navigating through 2020 and the boom of 21 and 22, and then kind of this recalibration that I'd call it. It's like through 23 and 24, and now where we're at in 25. Like it's definitely been a journey. I think it's been a growth journey, all along the way and at every stage. And all growth is not linear necessarily, just like up into the right, revenue growth. But the company today is, I think, more well prepared to meet the market's most pressing challenges from a workforce perspective and from like a future work perspective than we could have ever imagined 4 or 5 years ago, when we were really just, again, focused on executing and growing, but not with a lot of like long-term thinking in mind.
So you talked about scaling. What were some of the challenges scaling wise? And I'm thinking in the realm of people hiring for TalentCraft, but also technology wise, or even capital raise, because scaling
Yeah.
costs money.
Yeah.
So which of like, tell me about like what were the challenges with those three areas?
Well, I think on the capital front, I'll talk about that first. I mean, I think the one thing that TalentCraft has benefited from day one is like we have, our partners, our co-founders are very experienced operators and owners of businesses within the staffing industry. So they've been on this journey for a long time. They know how it works. They have built and created successful businesses that have added a lot of value to the clients that they serve. And so we had a strong foundation there. And I think that there are also people that knew and looked at this opportunity as a long-term strategy. Like our vision was not, sell the company in 5 years, right? The vision was build the company for the long haul and create something that had a lot of value in the market. And so we've been blessed from that perspective to, I don't want to say to not have to worry so much, but just to have the right level of support there. In 2021 and 2022, when we were really growing, right, the industry was growing a ton as well. So, if we were looking for talent that was in and had experience in the staffing and recruiting industry, it was really hard to hire people during that time because everyone was doing really well. Everyone was just focused on executing. Like there weren't a lot of problems in the market, so to speak. It was hard to kind of identify why somebody might want to make a move or not, right? So we we had to look into like unorthodox sources of how to get people into the company. And we considered a lot of different avenues to do that. But that was a tough part, like during the time that we were really kind of growing and scaling and like needing to hire because the business was growing so much. It was difficult to attract people, right? Just really good people and to attract them away from the companies that they were currently working at, just because everyone was, I think, doing so well and very much focused on execution. There was not a lot of time to kind of like look around and think about, oh, here's why I might want to make a move and so on and so forth. So those are kind of like the two areas there. Scaling the talent piece, we had to get creative. I think we did a great job of that. We were able to get a good mix of industry veterans into the company that kind of knew what we were doing and knew where just how to execute and how to operate. But then we also were able to kind of bring in a lot of people from non-traditional backgrounds and entry points into our industry that have really enabled us to like think a little different and I think pivot faster in certain moments.
So with that specifically, I know earlier you talked about the importance of having aligned values with your co-founder and partners. Um, how do you think that plays out in terms of hiring top talent? So for TalentCraft, it sounded like you found a way to do that, even in a very, very difficult market to hire people away. How do you find that top talent, even in a difficult market? What do you look for?
I think the first thing that it's a great question. I think the people that are here and the people that have joined us and are here kind of making a positive contribution to the company, which again, I feel like everyone here is really on board with the mission of the firm. Is that first of all, we have a long view, right? I don't think that anybody is here with the idea of like I was going to capture lightning in a bottle and capitalize on a certain moment and then move on to something else. So I think these are all like very committed people that are very curious. They take at times an unorthodox view of like looking at the market. They see things that maybe our others don't necessarily see, challenges, opportunities, certain situations that I think our clients really kind of benefit from that way of thinking. But they're also all builders. Like we're still in building mode. Like I talk about it all the time. Like the fun part about being at TalentCraft, and I think the fun part about being in the staffing and recruiting industry just in general is that the market's always changing and it's evolving. Like we don't have a product, so to speak, right? We're not making a product to like address a certain challenge or opportunity. We're developing a service that we choose to point at what we believe are the most pressing industries, the most critical industries facing the country and the global economy. And it's a fast-paced game. It's changing all the time. Like the demands that these companies have for their hiring needs and the strategies to hire top talent is always evolving. So by the nature of that, our business needs to keep constantly evolving. It can't stay stagnant. We're never gonna get to a point where we're like solved it, like it's over. Like it needs to get to a point where it's like it's really good in that moment and helping a client. We got to be good at execution, of course, but then beyond that, we need to be ready to move on to also like what's the next thing. Be thinking about that as well. And I think the group of people that we've assembled here, our core is embodies that. We are not a stagnant group of folks that gets comfortable easy. We're comfortable being uncomfortable, and I think that's been one of the things that's really benefited us along the way.
What are some of your proudest moments?
There's Well, I mean, I'm here in my office right now. I mean, I mean, the team, the proudest moment that I have is, I mean, we've built a very resilient team that has helped us and our clients navigate through um, just a really interesting first 7 years here. I think all markets are interesting, but we started the company and we're a year into it when when COVID came out, and I like to joke. I'm like, my plan all along was to just like, hire a bunch of ambitious, energetic, curious, entrepreneurial people, get them in a room and, teach them the business and grab a couple of our core clients and start doing some great work for them. And it was like, when it was like, we weren't going to be able to do that, I was like, oh no, well, there goes the plan. Like, now what? And it wasn't my ideas that carried us forward. It was really, I think, the resilience and the fortitude and the creative thinking of the team that's evolved us to where we are today. So like, I'm really proud of that. Personally, I am really proud of like what we've created and how many lives it's impacted. I think that's and continues to impact. Like every time a client testimonial comes in, a candidate testimonial, or somebody gets a great job that helps their family or grows their career, and TalentCraft could have played a small role in that. That makes me very proud. But I think the thing that makes me most that I'm most proud of and most excited for is the future. I do think that we are thinking a lot about that, and I think that we have it's the passion of our team about the work that we do that that's making that possible. And without that, I don't think that we're in a position to be having this conversation or just thinking about what do the next 6 months look like, let alone the next 6 years.
So before we get into, I know you want to talk about workforce development and the future of workforce, which is incredibly important right now. What's your vision for TalentCraft going forward? You talk long term, but what do you see happening for the company?
Well, I think the company is going to continue to grow like it has. I see us going deeper and wider into serving certain specific industries. For example, I mean, what we would kind of consider to be critical industries, semiconductors, quantum computing, minerals, energy, healthcare, financial services, the life sciences space. I mean, these are, I think, core industries that are at the epicenter of national competitiveness here in the U.S., and they are all facing an immense amount of challenge and transition at this time. And I see us being leaning even more heavily into the role of change agent as the needs for those industries continue to evolve and grow, and at times present a lot of like new and novel opportunity. Like some of this stuff has really never been done before, and AI is impacting a lot of that. The reshoring, as you mentioned earlier, of certain industries, or certain industries coming to certain markets and locations for the first time. Like I think about an opportunity that we are very close to, and here in the Midwest, which is a large semiconductor company coming to the state of Indiana, and producing some critical components for chips, for high memory bandwidth chips. And it's like last time I checked, like they've never done that before there. Like not only has this company never done that here, but like the people in this region haven't done this before. Now, I'm a firm believer that, like, specifically talking about the Midwest, that like, you come here when you need to get hard things done. Like that's what we do, right? Like this, we make steel here and things like that. And like when that was, never having been done before, like they came to the Midwest to do that, and rightfully so. So I think we're going to get it right. But like, I just, I think future of TalentCraft wise, we are going to continue to lean into like, what's the hardest thing out there and how can we help enable the workforce and ultimately the companies that need this workforce to be able to succeed? How are we going to enable them and put them in the right position to grow and have resilient, scalable pipelines of talent developed that make it easy for them to operate their business and grow? Getting the talent into the company so that that's not an issue for them when they need to hit the gas and grow, and have confidence that workforce is there. Like that's what we're continuing to kind of head into. I mean, I see us having more capabilities and more locations. Like right now, we're headquartered in the Chicagoland area. We have team members that are on both coasts. We have, folks in the Southeast. We have people in Indiana, throughout the Midwest. I see us having even more of a presence out West and in other markets in the future, and just kind of being where the action is.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you talked about those opportunities. Where do you think the opportunities are for workforce development from more of a national perspective?
That's a big question. I mean, obviously, maybe it's just the lens at which I'm looking at it through, but like, I feel like workforce development has become like dinner table conversation. Just like it's in the zeitgeist of the average American family at this point. Like, it feels to me like everyone's talking about it. People are talking about like, oh, is it a 4-year college? If so, which one? Or is it a trade school? Or is it straight into the trade? Or is it a certificate? Or is it a training program? Or, do I even need any of that? Right. And if you were like me, like when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do or even why the heck I was going. It was just like something my parents, didn't go to college, but they wanted that for me. But I'd be hard pressed to say if I knew why. It was just something that they were like, no, you're going to go do this, right? And it ended up being like obviously a huge point in my life, and it set me on this path, right? But it wasn't all laid out. And I think if you were like, if that were me today, I don't know if that would have been the same path, right? I mean, I'm glad that I did, and it's going to Purdue is like meant everything to me. But if faced with the same question today of like, what should I do? I don't know. I think that there's just more options out there, and it's a little unclear and whatnot. So like, yeah, I think workforce development is something that I think understanding it broadly as a country and having a strategy, which we do now, right? The Department of Labor put out something the other day that is kind of orienting everyone around like this golden age of innovation and workforce development here in the US. Like, I think that we're going to start to see programs align themselves to supporting those initiatives at the highest level, which I think is going to be a good thing for national productivity and ultimately have the American workforce working on the highest priority, biggest impact initiatives, occurring in the country, which I think is going to be AI innovation, right? And materials, energy, the components, everything that's needed to go into that is kind of where the focus is going.
Yeah, I find it interesting if you talk to people in the educational realm. There's such a greater awareness of a diversity of learning styles. And I think that leads towards helping people, like you said, find a job that they love doing, that they're going to succeed. And it doesn't always look like a 4-year degree with an additional graduate degree or it's changed the options. There's so many more options there. And I find it very exciting to see that it's not just the universities, but also government agencies and private agencies. They're all working together to try to figure this out. And it's starting to spread. I know about 5 or 6 years ago, the focus was on that post-secondary or even that even like the junior college, community college, like what can we do there to really support the workforce? What I'm excited about now is they're starting to recognize that you need to start much sooner, even in middle school, because if you don't present to, students growing up, look at the options. Your future doesn't look just like this one path. I think that's what we're seeing. So with that in mind, what organizations do you think have done a good job about working together in terms of, is it universities, is it companies? Who's working to make a difference with this right now? Who should we be watching?
Well, I think there's a lot of great work going on, and again, I mean, I'll call out, our industry association, the American Staffing Association, which, I'm a member of, TalentCraft's a member of, and they've been, forward leaning, and I think thinking about what is the role of like our industry within this workforce development equation, right? But I also think that there's, within the semiconductor space, there's an organization called SEMI, represents a ton of companies, and it's one of the biggest industry associations in that space globally. And they're doing an incredible job to build programs, build awareness, build incentive plans, et cetera. Something else I'll call out that again, I think has really been an important partner to us, that I think kind of like, highlights those industry, higher ed, legislative policy type partnerships, is an organization called the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue. It's an organization. I serve on the advisory board, or the advisory council, I should say, of the Krach Institute. Is founded by, an entrepreneur, a great business leader, Keith Krach, Purdue grad, did a lot of great things kind of at the State Department, and then, formed the Krach Institute, along with Mung Chiang, the president of Purdue University, to really kind of like sit at the intersection of higher ed, tech entrepreneurship, and like diplomacy, policy, like what's going on at the national level, and start to like drive these conversations together in like a really creative and interesting way. And like, these people are master conveners, and they are able to be, the kind of the connective tissue that's like getting all these people together in a room, and talking about, I think, the things that matter. And it's not just workforce that they're talking about. It's like it's R&D, it's funding, it's stuff happening in government, stuff happening globally, and what should we be thinking about there. And I think what we see from them, and I think this is like, I don't want to say like a new phenomenon, but like something that is definitely gaining more prevalence recently, is like when you get together just these disparate groups of people more regularly to talk about these critical issues, it's like there's good energy and good outcomes that comes from that, and whereas before I felt like it was like, the workforce development group was like an agency that like did stuff, either at the state level or at the federal level, but they didn't really like talk to the business leaders, or they didn't talk to, the people in higher ed, or people that were developing legislation that was going to impact, the needs of their folks. And now it's like they're all together, and it's really more about like, hey, this is the mission. We need to go fast and far here. And then it kind of comes down to execution for all of these different groups. And like, yeah, workforce is putting together programs to, drive certain initiatives forward, but they're doing it all like in conjunction and feeling like in lockstep with what the industry's needs are, what higher ed is doing, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. And I think I do see a resurgence, and we had talked about a resurgence of creativity, but also of innovation.
Yeah.
The opportunity for more centers like that to bring the various parts together, but also the incubators and the innovation centers that I'm seeing in manufacturing and other
Yeah.
life sciences and whatnot, that I see a lot of good stuff coming out of there, and I'm hoping that that'll continue. So it's good to hear that the workforce development has a really smart group of people taking that on.
Yeah.
So
And I should just mention too, here in Chicago, right? I mean, which, Portal Innovations in the life sciences space, which, we're a proud partner of, P33, M Hub, Intersect Illinois, like these
yeah,
organizations, they're all doing the same thing. And I think we're all benefiting from the kind of like proactive, forward thinking, looking around the corner mindset they are able to bring to topics like this. Like without them, we don't have the luxury of like thinking what, you know, is going to be going on, a year ahead, right? Because we're just focused on the here and now. But like with these organizations and being partner with these organizations, I think it's allowing us to like see into the future a bit. And that's helping us design today what we need to support those future plans now.
absolutely. And I do think a key part of that is bringing in the people with experience who
Yeah,
are able to understand that execution part. So, and to get the energy from the up and coming workforce to work together.
yeah.
I think that's really what's going to cause success going forward, which is great to hear. So who are your mentors, and what's some of the best advice you've gotten during this process in your career?
Wow. Well, I mean, again, I've I've benefited significantly from great mentorship, and I've been again blessed to have people in my life who have like, at first I didn't really understand like why it's like when you've never been mentored and someone comes and mentors you the first time, you're like, man, how do I repay this person? And they're like, no, it's fine. Like you just keep going, and you're like, what? Why are you spending your time with me? Right. And I think some of those mentors that I've had have really kind of taught me the lesson there. And it's obviously, as we've all talked about, it's like it's giving back, it's paying it forward, all of those things. But yeah, first one I'll call out is a guy named Bernie Circusgetter. I've known Bernie now for over 20 years. Bernie is almost 90 years old now. He's got more energy than I think most of us have on a given day. And he's one of those people that it just kind of opened up a new world for me, and has never asked anything in return, and is just always kind of giving me great advice. I think one of the best pieces of advice he gave me early on was I went to go see him when I was starting TalentCraft, and he, I was talking to him about like balance. At the time, I was like a new dad. I had we started the company. I had two kids, like 2 and 1, and then a third on the way. And it was like, whoa, like this is getting busy. How are we going to do this? And I remember he just like pulled out a piece of paper and drew an axis on it and was like, faith, family, work, play, keep them all in balance. and at the time I was like, oh God, easier said than done, but like, as I've gotten older and as I've kind of gone through different, iterations or seasons in my life and in the company, it's just like, wow, is that so true? It's like so true, right? When you feel like there's going to be different times that you have to like, give more to each one of those things. But at the end of the day, if you keep them in balance, like I think what I've learned is you're going to be all right, but like, through meeting Bernie, that's led me to another individual. I just want to call out Mark Carlson. Mark Carlson is a mentor of mine that Bernie has introduced me to. And Mark is one of those, again, wildly successful on so many levels. One of the most positive people I've ever spoken to, endless amounts of energy, ideas, creativity, like just a genuine, good-hearted person who is just like, the thing I learned most about from Mark is like he's just so interested in everything. I was talking with him the other day, and our conversation was like a wide ranging conversation from all of these things that are like very near term, like things in the business, or things in life. And then, out of nowhere, he's just like, oh, hey, by the way, I just saw a commercial for 8 Sleep, and we just bought that, bought this mattress, and you got to check it out. And like, it's changing, it's like, and so then we're going down a rabbit hole of like talking about, sleep schedules and mattresses and how that's like, he's like so well versed on so many things. Like his depth is like unbelievable. I feel like he can be an expert in most rooms he walks into, but like he's also just like one of the most humble, congenial guys, that I know. And every time I pick up the phone and give him a call, he seems like he's got an hour for me. And it's like, and I know he's got a million things going on. So, yeah, mentors have been important to me in my life. And then, informally, in a different way, I'd say, my dad, he's taught me a lot. So,
Love hearing that. That's awesome. So you talked about sleep, and about keeping things in balance. So what are some of your daily rituals that help you keep that balance?
yeah, well, I'm like a recovering like athlete, right? And marathon runner and whatnot. And like my for me it used to be running. Like I would like to do that every day. My wife will tell you that like I'm a renaissance man, and I acquire hobbies fast, and seemingly they all come with like lots of gear and stuff to put in the garage, like whether it's golfing or road cycling or all of these things. But like I have a lot of interest. I think my daily rituals. I've been fortunate to work with a great coach, and she's taught me about journaling, being very intentional about having like a start of the day routine and an end of the day routine, and that stuff really helps. It's like waking up, having a way that you start your day, clearing your mind, clearing your thoughts. Like I think earlier on in my career too, I thought like, you just needed to like feet hit the ground and then like away you go, and like for me now more than ever, like I'm very intentional about like waking up earlier, going to bed earlier, having like the first hour of the day be just kind of like for me to like think about stuff and do things, not even like necessarily about like what I have to do that day, but just stuff that I'm thinking about. Like you get it all out. And then, I go through my day, and then, for me, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, I don't know if we call it a ritual, but like, I love being home with my family. Like, I've got 3 kids that keep us very busy, and we're running around right now to all the different sporting events and stuff. Like we're in that season of life, and then ending the day at home, my wife, um, reading books, watching great shows, talking, catching up. Like those are the things that kind of like bookend my days.
I love that. And it's a very common theme to have the routines beginning of the day, ending of the day. And I'm hearing while interviewing business owners having that built-in time to
Mhm.
think strategically. And it may not even be on your business, but on life in general. and being able to really set aside that time that's a theme that I'm seeing come up again and again in these conversations. I do have one last question, but before I ask it, I wanted to point people to your website, talentcraft.com. And of course, to reach out to you on LinkedIn it sounds like that's a great way to connect with Matt. So Matt, what's a hard lesson you learned that you wish you could impart to future business owners?
Learned a lot of hard lessons. I think one that stands out though is, gosh, you have to have again, it comes back to balance. It's like you have to have a vision for your business and where it's going. You also have to be able to communicate that and enlist people in the fight with you. While also like not taking it too seriously. It can't be, I think for me at times in my career and at times even with TalentCraft, like I have been so, I felt like progress, was a direct correlation to like how hard I was pushing on the business or how hard I was working in it or, how hard I was trying to kind of, drive it toward a certain outcome. And that I could directly impact that. When in the reality, I've seen it more often than not, like when you set a team toward a vision and gas them up and fire them up about it and get out of the way, that's when better things happen at that point, right? Rather than trying to kind of lead toward it on your own. So I think when I was young, and still am, but like in the early innings of TalentCraft, I wish I would have understood that better than I did at the time, and that I think I've learned along the way.
That's great advice. That was great advice. I've been talking with Matt Vuckov, founder and CEO of TalentCraft. Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story, your thoughts. We have so many links I'm going to make sure are embedded in this episode because you really pointed out to a lot of organizations that are making some awesome changes for the workforce going forward. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it. It's been great to talk with you.
Thank you for listening to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, sponsored by Newport, a unique national business advisory firm. If you enjoyed this show, be sure to share, like, and subscribe for future episodes.